actually looking at the sweaters. What size is that sweater? Medium, large?
Large.
Okay. How are they sleeve? How tall are you? You bigger than me or taller than me?
I'm about 6 foot.
Okay, you're taller than me. And this, okay, large. All right. Should I get the Princess Di one? The actual?
No, that one's obnoxious.
I feel like the new Taylor Swift me could rock that.
Oh yeah. Maybe if they had a cardigan version.
Oh, that would be like this. I'm a Taylor Swift cardigan kind of guy these days.
You've changed. You're evolving.
I'm evolving.
Yeah.
Me and Tay-Tay, we just constantly.
The door hath been kicked open.
I love kicking doors open.
Yeah. Where's that come from?
I don't know. It's genuine. It's just who I've always been. I think part of it comes from me just being, in my life, I've never really kind of fit into that crowd. And so we talk about kind of the sheep and so forth and so on is like, I just have, there's been never in my life has there ever been a time where I can just sort of blend in. And part of it is just, my externality, meaning like I got brown skin and, like basically, I was born and raised in Dayton, Ohio. And, everybody around me was white. And so there's no way that for me to ever just blend in. And so on every, sporting field in particular, I was always sort of, the outsider. And I actually, and the more I think about it, I think part of it comes from that. So I played soccer and hockey and baseball, and hockey in particular, soccer to some extent. I don't know that there was a game that went by that somebody didn't say something to me about me not being, basically back in the day, I grew up in the 70s, I've had the N-word, said my way more than probably anybody else around certainly that I know. And so it was sort of, I think when you're young and that's happening, then you're like, oh, I'm different. And, I think that's part of it. And then it's just sort of living my life knowing that I'll never be able to fit in. But then also living my life knowing, I think back to like, what are we doing? Why is Advent doing what we're doing? Why am I doing, that on behalf of Advent? There's something that we do that makes profound differences for people. And the system beneath which I work is so profoundly broken that it makes me want to kick doors open. It makes me want to do everything I can to help those people that are there. Mm-hmm. And it's genuine. I mean, but part of it comes from that mindset. And then part of it actually does come back to DIY punk rock, have metal to some extent, but basically there's sort of the outsider culture that I've always gravitated to. And I feel like there's a bit of an enigma about me because, and we've talked about this. I don't look like, I used to love goth music as a specific example. I never wore black eyeliner, right? I never did all the things. I mean, I used to love punk rock. I never had whatever, leather jacket.
You didn't have a mohawk. But
yeah.
Now you love Taylor Swift and you wear cardigans.
Exactly.
You're evolving.
I'm constantly in evolution. I feel like, that's, which is good. I mean, so I feel like Taylor Swift, given my story arc, I feel like Taylor Swift is a unusual direction for me to go. We'll see if I stick there, but so far so good.
So you've evolved, you're evolving.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned a moment ago that the system is broken. We've talked about that in some detail previously.
Right.
So what is going to happen? What is going to change? What needs to change? What needs to change, and how is it going to change? You've got your crystal ball.
Yeah. Well, everything needs to change.
Okay.
And how it's going to change is not without disruption, or let me state it again, with disruption. I mean, the only way for anything to change in regard to sleep apnea in particular is for the current system to be disrupted. Any other pathway, there is no pathway forward with the various tribes that exist within this community. And there isn't any possibility. We've talked about, sort of there's been meetings with dental sleep folks and sleep med folks, and they'll usually throw an ENT in there just to kind of add a little spice or whatever you want to call it. and that's nice to come together, but everybody goes back to their tribe and everybody puts their head down and everybody continues to do what they do and nothing actually changes. Nobody's actually helped through that, and everybody knows it. And so you can continue to mindlessly repeat these meaningless acts, or you can decide to do something different. But I don't. I mean, just to be frank, I'd say, is there a pathway? Let me just go, sort of tribe by tribe. Dental sleep medicine much better than I do. You would agree that dental sleep medicine, there's a massive opportunity within that field. I mean, huge. Agreed. Is there any way to unlock that potential between those that are getting served? Meaning that if nothing else changed right now in the dental sleep medicine community, what would allow that potential to be reached?
Yeah. So some of the impediments,
Mm-hmm.
payer issues,
Sure.
The fact that the prescription has to come from a physician, that only a physician can make the diagnosis of OSA, all of those things today impede progress.
Okay. Well, I don't disagree. If all those things, if I had a magic wand, I made them go away, what would?
So if you, thank you.
Yeah.
If you had that magic wand and you made those things go away, the reason that I wrote that book,
Mm-hmm.
Transform Dental Sleep, and I mention this in the book, if you eliminate all of those challenges, which are real challenges, they are.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But if you eliminate all of those with that magic wand, most dentists will still be unsuccessful with the significantly increasing the volume of patients so that they can impact their communities. And the reason for that is because, they oftentimes they lack the interpersonal relationship skills, they lack the networking skills, they lack the ability to design, develop, and incorporate systems that are scalable, that are reproducible across multiple locations so that they can really make a community impact.
Sure.
Those things wouldn't change. So ultimately, the onus is on the individual to change themselves, to change to change who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you would probably say that over the course of your life, it's been an evolutionary process. You've changed and you've become the person you are that's persistent, that has grit, that's resilient, that's forward thinking. Yes?
I hope so. I hope I'm evolving and not devolving. But I would say I would agree. And I think, at least in my career, all of the things that you mentioned are things that I have chosen to take on as a challenge. I mean, we talked about Advent being this. It's a large practice, and we're 17 clinics, and we're in 4 states. We started with one practice. That practice was my wife and myself, and we were that way for 10 years, a single office. And I'm as proud of that era as I am of the current era. I just have a different purpose now than I did back then. But I think the things that I've been working on trying to figure out, scale is a word that probably doesn't come up very often. I never heard of the word in medical training. It just doesn't exist. I'm sure the same in dental training. You don't need to be taught some of these things. You can go find the information and you could say, oh, I'm gonna figure this out. And again, I mean, I think that's an example of, let me go this way. And for those that don't know, scale is reproducibility, is the ability to take processes, if it's about processes, and being able to implement them in multiple locations. I think there are a lot of people who don't know what that word is. So just so we're all clear, that is just to be that is the solution for the current problem, whether it's within dental sleep medicine, ENT, you name it. The solution is there have to be options that are scalable, processes that are scalable. And if you don't have that, there is no ability, in my opinion, to actually make a change. So, again, I don't want to make this all about me and what we're doing, but I'd say That's all that we're trying to do. All that we're trying to do, all that I'm trying to do is create scalable processes. And we just so happen to include oral appliance therapy in that. Now, my processes, I don't know that they would work for, the typical dental sleep medicine practitioner, because we have some unique skill sets. There's things that we do that they typically can't do, and that's fine. I mean, meaning it's fine to figure it out on your own. But and then just to kind of jump to a different flock, which is sleep medicine. I'm curious. What is your opinion of? Do you have an opinion of sleep medicine as a specialty?
Only that it's, that there are whatever 7,000 board certified sleep doctors.
Mm-hmm.
There's a dearth of them, and not enough to cover the need.
Right, and those that are there. How do you say this? We talked about this. Most people in my community, when they think about sleep apnea, think of what option?
Of CPAP.
CPAP. It's CPAP or nothing else. So, is there a pathway in that community? Could they be the change that the world needs? Could they solve? So the problem. So everybody's clear. The problem is there are a lot of people out there who have what we call breathing triangles that aren't working. Then there are the ability for those folks to connect with resources. And so we talked about the dental sleep medicine community and what's the solution there. I think we maybe concluded or thought that, figuring out a scalable process to be able to grow the reach and impact of dental sleep medicine, maybe a pathway forward. For the sleep medicine community, is there a pathway there? I mean, that you know of? I know it's a little bit, I know you're very familiar with dental sleep medicine. Sure. And maybe more peripheral with sleep medicine.
Yeah, you tell me.
I'm not a part of that community myself, but I am a physician, so I'd say no, definitively no. And I say it the way I said it because that is if we talk about scale as sort of something that you want to work towards, sleep medicine is medicine in general, and sleep medicine specifically, is one of the least scalable specialties within medicine. There's nothing about it that is made to scale, other than maybe we have home sleep testing, which has been around for a while. That was very disruptive to that industry, and we're on the other side of that disruption, where most insurance companies actually require or recommend home sleep testing versus in-lab testing. So if you want to talk about a sea change, that was a sea change. In my opinion, that's a sea change toward the positive. There was technology that was developed that actually made the old technology, I wouldn't say obsolete, but much less necessary. And so theoretically, because people can get tested at home, that should open the doors wide towards people getting tested. And I really haven't seen that. I have not seen that because we are, I think at the core, I think the thing we're getting to is dental sleep medicine or sleep medicine. It comes back to people, and really it comes back to clinicians. And clinicians aren't trained to think to scale. They're trained to think about individual patients that they're treating. And it almost breaks their minds to try to think scale. Like it doesn't compute. It doesn't work that way. So sleep medicine, I don't really see a pathway forward there. So we're kind of striking out. Is there any other flock?
Yeah, I mean, is there any way to inject scalability there?
Honestly, no. And in a way, I keep saying it the way I'm saying it. So it's like, why is he using that tone in his voice? In medicine, we talked about this before, there's surgeons and there are medical doctors. Sure. And medical doctors are surgeons. There is, we're taught about process, and we're process driven, and we're solutions driven. And so we tend to, I think scale for me is something I was able to learn, because I was like, oh no, that's like, I do this operation, I do, these 3 steps, and if I can hone them down and teach them to somebody else, I've just scaled. That's the first step in scale. Medicine is the opposite. Is like, there's no process. Everything is unique. Everything is its own. Like, this is a unique individual, and there's, we're going to treat them individually. And the mindset is not conducive to scale. So I actually definitively would say a dental mindset, because dentists are trained as surgeons. I mean, they're surgeons of the mouth, and so dentists and other people who are trained in processes are much more likely to be the solution than those that are just not. So I basically I would abandon all hope for the sleep medicine community by itself to solve the problem.
So all hope is lost.
All hope is lost. Here, my last attempt at could there be some hope in my community, which is the ENT community. And what do you know about the ENT community? Like, what is that? We talked about these other two flocks. Is that, and I know you're an outsider to that community, but I'm kind of curious to hear what the outsider perspective is.
Yeah, not a whole lot.
Yeah, and we don't. I mean, how do you say it? Where on the radar screen does ENT come up in dental sleep? Like, is it something? I mean, I know I've sort of brought it up on the radar screen, but prior to, let me go there. I think prior to Advent, prior to my name kind of getting bantered around. I think Inspire was something that's sort of caught some buzz, and from what I hear, there's sort of similar chatter around Inspire is what has existed in very similar to what the chatter is around me. Although just with frankness, we do not as a practice. Inspire is not a service line. We don't offer that. We could. It's something we've looked at. It just doesn't fit with what we're trying to do. We're trying to do office procedures to help people. Inspire is not that. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I mean, I think Inspire is something that, from what I've heard, I feel like dental sleep, I feel like people have been scared of Inspire. Here, I mean, let me go the analogy. Inspire is a direct-to-consumer marketing company that talks about CPAP alternatives.
Yeah, no, I think that analog is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
And to that, I would say, I mean, I've talked with dentists about their fears surrounding Inspire.
Yeah.
And my view of it is that, there are many patients that are precluded from Inspire.
Sure.
Due to comorbidities or whatever it might be. And so my thought is that the dentist should go to those Inspire clinics or those clinicians and forge a relationship.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen with these patients that are where Inspire is contraindicated?
Right.
Well, potentially an oral appliance. And as a result of that, I mean, you may have a new referral source.
Mm-hmm.
Or you can look at it and say, they're spending all of this money and they're stealing all of the patients.
Yeah.
Does that sound like anything you've heard before?
Well, I've heard that before. I mean, it's so sort of ridiculous at face value because of what you said. I mean, most people who are interested in Inspire, well, let me start there. Everybody who's interested in Inspire is somebody who is looking for a CPAP alternative.
Mm-hmm.
They may or may not have tried CPAP, but they're looking for a CPAP alternative. Almost every one of those individuals who is looking for a CPAP alternative is actually looking for, if they're talking about the throat part of things, if they knew about oral appliance therapy and they understood what Inspire actually is, they would choose oral appliance therapy over Inspire every day of the week.
Sure.
In fact, I'd go to say, I don't think there's a single person who would choose Inspire when there is a viable possibility that oral appliance therapy might work, because you would have to be, unless they're whatever it is, sadistic or masochistic, unless you want to go through an invasive surgery, for a throat condition versus an oral appliance. I mean, I don't know. It just doesn't make any sense. So,
Sure.
So that's what I would say. Yet, Inspire, in many ways, sort of, I'm trying to use my words carefully here. They prey upon those individuals who are looking for CPAP alternatives with the hope that they can get them into Inspire. We'll jump over oral appliance therapy. We'll jump over the nose, to get them there. So I don't think they're, devious people. I'm just saying that's they're approaching the same market, but they're doing it in a different angle. And who does the Inspire implants? ENTs doing the Inspire implants. And I have nothing against those ENTs who are doing that. I think, I'm a fan and I'm an advocate for anybody who's providing good service within this breathing triangle space, whether it's me or anybody else. So there are many people who are being helped by having Inspire done. All of those individuals should have awareness of alternatives to Inspire. oral appliance therapy is the most likely alternative. And I would put this on the doorstep of the dental sleep medicine community to be the champion. Exactly what you just said. There's an opportunity in every community where somebody's doing Inspire for dental sleep medicine to take the initiative to get in front of those docs to say, hey, do you know about oral appliance therapy? Do you understand what it is, and so forth and so on? And now you might get some doors closed in your face. Might be people who say, "I don't go away." Deal with it. I mean, I've had many doors slammed in my face, and I've been told to go away many times, including by you. But regardless, I'd say there's sort of this unnecessary angst about Inspire. But back to my flock, I'd say Inspire is one thing that ENTs do. But man, if I could educate my colleagues to simply have a greater awareness and appreciation for nose and throat conditions like sleep apnea, and we haven't talked about it much, but do the simple things that we can do as a specialty to let people breathe better through their nose, so that they can breathe better, period. And if they have sleep apnea, so that they can use a CPAP properly or use an oral appliance properly. That's something that would literally, in my opinion, change the world. So I believe that the change that is the only, this is going to sound really weird because I feel like we're such a small niche specialty. I believe the only pathway to truly create the future that I think needs to exist has to come from the ENT space. That's a bold statement. I'd say come at me if you feel differently, but that's what I believe, because I think, and why do I believe that? Well, you have a surgical specialty they're looking to get results. They theoretically understand and appreciate the nose and throat, which is exactly the area where we're looking to achieve the results, and can forge relationships with dental sleep medicine and the sleep medicine community to allow that to happen. So I think the ENT space is where it can happen. Unfortunately, my colleagues don't know scale either. They were never taught scale. They actually are happy doing ENT in the way that it was done 20 or 30 years ago. They don't want to do office procedures. They don't want to deal with oral appliances, even to send them, to a dentist. They don't. It's a bother, and so I think honestly that's where it can come from. But it isn't just going to happen, by happenstance. And every one of those camps has vested interest, though. I mean, they're definitely, people are looking out for themselves a lot of times when they think about how they approach patients.
So sleep, dental sleep, ENT, and an inability to scale is the issue.
People are the issue. Meaning people, either flocks of people or individual people. When I say people, I specifically mean clinicians. I mean dentists. I mean physicians are specifically to blame for this condition. And I believe, and again, what's the condition? The condition is we have an airway crisis in this country, and nobody is doing anything meaningful about it. And so where I put the most blame is on the ENT community, my community, and I put the blame on myself because I'm part of that community. Like, I'm in that flock, and so I'm to blame. So basically, I would say people are to blame. What people? All of the people we mentioned. Well, can you be more specific? Well, the ENT community, okay, great, more specific. The person who's talking right now is to blame for the problem, and I'm going to do whatever I can do about it that I can. But even if I do everything that I can do, it's never going to be enough. So that can be very sort of nihilistic potentially. Like, man, pessimistic. I don't know. You could banter those words around, but it's isn't that depressing? I guess we're kind of this is sort of feel like, oh man, this all sucks. We just said we got this problem. There's no solution. Man, it's all bad news, but it's not though, is it?
When you look at the big picture, you look at the space-time continuum.
Okay.
40 years ago, OSA was essentially unrecognized.
Yep.
20 years ago, PAP was, in that same space. 10 years ago, you had one office with just your wife. Oral appliance therapy was still made, all the devices were still made by hand at a bench.
Right.
Now you've got 3D printing, you've got milling. The devices have come a long way.
Yeah.
So you can see the processes are evolving.
Yeah,
So there's some hope there.
there is hope.
What will it look like 20 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the. I mean, I feel like we've sort of. I don't know. We've dwelled on the negative, but I think there's, there is a significant gap that exists between current reality and the hopeful possibility for where things are at. But kind of what you were just saying. Yeah, absolutely. Did sleep apnea exist 50 years ago? Yeah, it did. What happened to people who had it and we didn't have a diagnosis for them? Well, they died. They died of a heart attack. They died of a stroke. They died of some sort of resultant comorbidity from the sleep apnea, but we didn't know about it. So I'd say in my lifetime, basically in my lifetime and in our lifetime, there was a time where everybody who had this condition suffered with it, and some of them died from it. And then we moved to an era where we have now, hey, we got this diagnosis now. There's this thing that happens to people that they stop breathing when they're sleeping at night. Their throat shuts down. Oh, interesting. And then literally when I was in med school and going through my ENT training is where the CPAP started to become more known as a thing. And this is the era where greater awareness happened. Nobody sort of back in the 80s, no common person would have ever, sleep apnea is not in the vernacular. In the 90s and 2000 is where it's like, oh, sleep apnea is a thing, and that's also where CPAP is a thing. So all of a sudden now we can test people to understand what this condition is. Now there's a treatment. It's a gold standard treatment. Unfortunately, the gold standard is problematic. I mean, basically, what's the problem with CPAP? I'm trying to accentuate the positive, but I'm also commenting on the negative. Is problem with CPAP is many people look at the treatment as worse than the problem. So if you have sleep apnea or you snore, you have something you don't want to have. Then you look at the solution, which is CPAP, and you'd say, geez, I'd rather have my problem than that thing.
Sure.
That's the truth. But still, a lot of people ended up going through it. And instead of sort of a one-way ticket to go in horizontal, those people were treated, and you don't know the alternative reality, but many of those individuals, their lives were prolonged, their lives were enriched, and then we moved to oral appliance therapy era, which, relatively speaking, honestly, given the scalability of these new appliances, that's at its infancy. So as much as we and I did it too, as much as we denigrate and say, God, 5%, man, that's horrible. 5% is certainly much greater than it was 20 years ago. And
Sure.
Same thing with CPAP. There's been some, movement in a forward direction. So it's going from nothing, 0 to 1 is the hardest step in the world. And so to accentuate the positive, I'd say, well, maybe all this is we've got some momentum going. And we got these various camps. We have this condition that's really relatively new. We have these treatment options that are really relatively new. We have technology that's continuing to advance. So it's not going to just magically transform itself to, the panacea. But I think we can say if we follow that arc, and there are some significant events that cause some significant movement or adoption, that the future is bright, or not, or is it dark? You tell me.
I think we've seen it's evolving and it's moving in the right direction, just slower than we'd like. But thankfully, there's some good people out there. You, Advent, a lot of my dental sleep friends that are really making an impact in their communities.
Yeah.
And hopefully some people will hear this and it'll give them the bug.
Yeah.
And they'll go forth and do good as well.
I mean, I would love nothing more than that, honestly. I mean, again, kind of back to your book, and to me, it seems to be a central tenet there, and I believe it. I know you wrote it, but I believe that concept is that, all of these things, these big problems, you could sit here on the ground and stare up there and like, oh, that problem's really big, and it's bumming me out, and that guy, he looks like he's gonna try to do something about that, and I'm going to be mad at that guy. You can think all of those things, or you can simply decide to look in the mirror and say, you know what? I don't think I'm going to get over there. Here's the place we want to go. I'm not going to be able to get there by myself. And the reality is you're not. But we we're not probably going to get there either, in our lifetime, but we can help to be part of the trajectory that gets us there. So when you're, let's just call it the moon. If when you're standing, when Neil Armstrong was standing on the moon, it wasn't Neil Armstrong that got him there by himself.
Sure.
It was all of the work that happened, all going back through time, through the Wright brothers, through Da Vinci. You go all the way back and you say, well, that's where it started. And I think the same thing. But two things. One is, isn't it amazing that the human species put a person on the moon? That's crazy. And then you go, well, how did that happen? Well, it was individuals taking individual action, ownership and action over their sphere of influence. That's what caused that. And, I think very much the same in this situation with sleep apnea, with these various factions. Honestly, I feel like it's going to be, this will happen if individuals decide to make a choice. And the choice is a choice of purpose, a choice of working towards something versus against something. And I have no reason to doubt. I don't, just like I'm sure the Wright brothers didn't, I don't think the Wright brothers were bummed out that they weren't standing on the moon when they were working on their airplane.
Sure.
I don't know what they thought, but they weren't like, man, this all sucks and like, what is it worth? I think they thought, man, it'd be cool to fly. And, so two brothers in Dayton, Ohio, my hometown, did something that everybody else said was impossible. And that was a DIY effort, by the way. The government had their own thing going. That was an interesting story. But I guess where I'm going is that you can't stand around waiting for somebody else to solve the problems that you yourself can be part of the solution for. Well, you can, but I think if you're going to do that, you're going to live a life that's basically, in my opinion, worthless. And so if you want to have meaning in your life, if you want to do something that's worth doing, you have to set it upon yourself to do something, to take action, as you described in your book. And, that's my, I know we're sort of finishing up here, but my parting words is simply that is, and again, I know it's hokey, but be the change that you want to see in the world. Mm-hmm. As hokey as that is, there's massive truth there. And anybody who's ever done anything worth doing is encapsulated in that sentence.
100%. I agree wholeheartedly.
All right.
But I'm out of breath.
I'm out of breath too. This has been, it's been good. I think we've covered a lot of ground. Hopefully we'll see where this goes. I'm curious to see, kind of how people take it in. And I honestly, for me, myself, I'll just speak for myself personally, I'd love nothing more than to keep the conversation going, whether it's with you or, the dental sleep medicine community or the medical community or the ENT community or, certainly all the people out there who are, dealing with these conditions. Talk is cheap on one hand, but talk is what, sort of solves problems.
You can set the stage for action, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Tear down walls, bring some of these flocks together, do what needs to be done. So,
beautiful.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for making it happen. I appreciate it. And till next time.